Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how I use Anki for one of the most common exams in pharmacy. It's known as the Pharmacy Drug List exam. This is for the outline for today's video. Just wanted to note here that the topics bolded in green are high yield topics that are particularly useful for pharmacy students because they cover study strategies that are directly relevant for studying for the Pharmacy Drug List exam. So just to give a bit of context as to what the Pharmacy Drug List exam is, it's an exam that tests a student's ability to actively recall drug names, both brand and generic, drug doses, medical terminology, as well as being able to do some basic pharmaceutical calculations. But for the sake of this video, we'll primarily be focusing on drug names, both brand and generic, as well as drug doses and medical terminology, as all of these can be practiced with Anki. So just giving a reason as to why pharmacy schools like to test students on these kinds of facts, it's because they want to ensure that pharmacy students have a safety foundation going into the workplace, and they need to be able to ensure that pharmacists can instantly recognize drug names as well as their key doses and their indications or their therapeutic uses. And this is very important because they want to make sure that workflow efficiency is optimized, meaning that it's the best that it can be. And they believe that, or pharmacy schools believe that this exam is the best way to do that. Regardless of the reason as to why this exam is conducted, many students tend to dread this kind, or many pharmacy students tend to dread this kind of exam because they are forced to memorize decontextualized facts within a short period of time that makes it difficult to address when testing day comes. So the goal of this video is for me to show you how I personally study and succeed at doing well in this kind of exam, and to give you guys strategies on how you can at least do well or pass this exam or do even better than what I did. Basics of Anki. So first things first, we're gonna when we're using Anki, and we're gonna make a flashcard deck. So to make a flashcard deck, all you need to do is just click on create deck, type in the deck name for what you want it to be. For this case, we're gonna name it for Pharmacy Drug List exam. And then if we want to take it a step further, we can create a subdeck for this deck that we just created, which is the Pharmacy Drug List exam deck. By clicking on creating deck again, you can either do this and then typing in the name of the first deck, Pharmacy Drug List exam, and then putting 2 colons, and then just labeling the next title for whatever you want the name of the subdeck to be, which is what we're doing. So the name of this subdeck will be PDL class 1, okay? And then what it does is that when you do that, when you add 2 colons in front of a deck, it creates a subdeck that you can add flashcards to. This is useful if you're trying to organize flashcards into subfolders. Okay, so once we've made our deck, we can start making flashcards. So to make a flashcard, you click on the add button, and then we won't use image occlusion yet. We'll just use the basic flashcard. So you can set your flashcard type to be basic, which is what a lot of users tend to rely on, is just using the basic flashcard. And then this box here indicates which deck the flashcard will be saved to. So in this case, the flashcard I'm about to make will be saved in the Pharmacy Drug List exam PDL class 1 subdeck. Okay, and so the card on the front side of the card is the question. Usually it will be the question that you want to test yourself on. So say for example, how many fingers am I holding up? That's the question portion of the flashcard, and then the answer is on the back. Say for example 5, right? what is the brand name of oxycodone? List 1, oxyneo. Fairly straightforward. Once you're done making the flashcard, you click on add, and then when you want to review the flashcard, you go back out and then you click on study now. Then there you go. I also wanted to go over this particularly useful add-on feature in Anki that's really helpful for saving time on making flashcards. It's called the Occlusion tool. So the Occlusion tool is an add-on feature for Anki that works by turning images, diagrams, tables into flashcards by covering certain parts of the image or table or diagram. So let me just show you how it works here. So if I want to use the Occlusion tool to make several flashcards from one image or table, what I would do is essentially I would take a screenshot. I would take a screenshot of the table of interest, and then what I would do next is I would click on add flashcard, and then I'd switch the type of flashcard to occlusion. Or honestly, I wouldn't even need to do any of that. I could just click on this feature here. I'll leave a link to the add-on feature for the Occlusion tool in the description below later if you guys want to check it out. But essentially, say for example, I want to memorize, I want to test myself on what doses of lisinopril are available. I'd click on any area, and then I'd create a box and drag it down, covering the doses for lisinopril. And then I could do that for other drugs within the same class by repeatedly doing the same thing. Okay? And from that, I can choose either to hide all boxes or hide only one box at a time while leaving everything else open. And I'll show you what this means later in a second. So if I click this one, it'll cover all the drug doses for this drug class, while only allowing me to guess what the drug doses for one drug is, while hiding the doses for everything else. This is an important feature later, but and then I add. I'll show you right now actually what this means. So skip this. So you can see here that all the other drug doses for perindopril, ramipril, and trandopril are covered. The only drug that we're focusing on right now is lisinopril. Okay, it's the same thing for these ones as well. Now, if I chose the hide one, guess one feature, it would create 4 flashcards, but this time you can see that the drug doses of the other drugs are shown here. That's just another add-on feature that I added. But yeah, essentially that just shows that you can focus on one drug at a time while having access to other drug doses. It all comes down to personal preference. Personally, I think it'd be more beneficial in the long run to hide the doses of the other drugs while focusing on one drug at a time. But that's just me. Alright, so now that we've gone into the basics of how to use Anki, let's go through some basic memorization strategies that we can use to help support our learning when we're going through these flashcards to memorize decontextualized facts. So from an overall perspective, when considering studying for these kinds of exams, I like to think of them on a past-based approach. So there are several stages or focuses of flashcard practices that we want to consider. So during the first pass, this should probably be, I'd say, 4 days out at least. Give it, or not even, even 3 days out. You can do it as late as 3 days out. You'd want to run through the material at least once. This is especially the case if you're looking at this material for the first time, because your brain needs time to adjust and to internally process that information. So you need to make sure that you're giving it enough time to process. So you'd want to spend at least 3 days outwards, run through your first pass or go through your newly made flashcards at least once to make sure that you're comfortable with the material. Really comfortable with the material and really process and internalize it. And then 2 days outwards, you'd want to run your second pass, and then 1 day outwards, you'd obviously want to run your pass 3 times. Obviously, the situation is not as simple as it sounds, and there'll be times when you need to triage or prioritize certain sections of the exam that you need to prepare for, because you may feel confident in some areas of the exam but not confident in others. So you need to just balance your priorities out and try to triage where possible. All right. So the second key focus, or the second memorization strategy we want to use when we're going through Anki flashcards, is figuring out when to scaffold or adjust flashcards. So this is what we want to focus on. Okay, so the key idea here is to recognize when a flashcard is too easy or too difficult. So let's say, for example, you're running through a flashcard and you find it too easy and you're running through it too quickly. It means that you're not getting it enough of a challenge when you're going through the flashcard, and that makes you more prone to making mistakes on the final exam because you're associating an answer with a cue or a trigger or a prompt, and that can weaken your memory in the long run or even in the short term, because if you don't have that cue or prompt present when you're writing the exam, it'll be difficult to recall that information when you're writing that exam. So you want to make sure that you're challenging yourself as much as you possibly can, but also not making it too difficult. So if a flashcard is too easy and you're running it through too quickly, you need to make it more difficult by removing certain words or prompts, such as removing underlining or bolded text, or making the flashcard vague to further encourage active recall or improve your working memory. On the other hand, if a flashcard is too difficult and you're spending too much time, make it easier for yourself to conceptually understand and process by adding more context or information. So it's working back and forth between these two. Okay, so let's say, for example, here for this flashcard, this flashcard is asking us to recall the brand names of oxycodone, right? And the 3 brand names here are Oxyneo, OxyIR, and Subdeck. So already here you can see a pattern that this flashcard on the first glance may be difficult to recognize. So to help facilitate our learning and to make it easier for ourselves, we would scaffold or adjust the card by underlining this text to indicate that a part of the generic name is included in the brand name, specifically Oxy, right? Oxyneo, OxyIR, and Subdeck. 3 brand names. 2 of those brand names have the generic prefix, which is Oxy. Okay. Let's go to another example where I feel like a flashcard would be too easy, or where it would be too easy. Let's see here. A flashcard that's too easy. Honestly, most of the time, because you're in a time crunch, I find that most of the time when I'm scaffolding, it's usually to make the flashcard easier because you have so many flashcards to run through. Like this flashcard set alone is 110 flashcards, and this is just for several classes within a giant bigger class. I think this flashcard set in general is meant to have 372 cards. Like this is for all of FDL, or for all of our drugs in the first year. Okay, so in general, you're just scaffolding cards. I'm just trying to show one more example here. So where I'm scaffolding flashcards. Right here. Where is it? I guess I can use this example. So let's say, for example, a combination product, which means that it's a drug product containing at least 2 active pharmaceutical ingredients, which in this case is latanoprost and timolol. So this flashcard is asking for the brand name. Now the brand name is called Xalacom, like combination. And this is just a note that I made to help me memorize it because I noticed that when I associate certain people or things with a concept, it becomes easier to memorize. But yeah, Xalacom is the brand name for the combination product latanoprost and timolol. Now if we look here, the name latanoprost, the latanoprost brand name, generally latanoprost as a monotherapy product or one drug product on its own is named Xalatan or monoprost. So I saw a similar pattern here where com would be underlined to indicate combination, so that the next time I look at the flashcard, I'll remember that the combination product name for latanoprost and timolol specifically is Xalacom. Okay? The last memorization strategy that I want to go through today is involving the usage of a specific spaced repetition button. So what I'm referring to is this button right here, these buttons right here. Again, hard, good, and easy, and knowing which button to pick when you're studying flashcards. And this is really important when you're trying to determine which flashcards to triage or which flashcards to prioritize when you're trying to save time. So I would click these 2 buttons mainly when I feel like I am either not understanding a topic at all to understanding a topic or a concept and being able to reiterate the concept detail for detail with a few minor errors. So if there were any errors in my judgment or any errors in my explanation, I would repeat the flashcard within 6 minutes or immediately in less than a minute if I got the answer completely wrong. So these are just guidelines that I go by normally when I'm doing these flashcards. And then if I think that my explanation is good enough, I usually click this, and usually when you tell it to when you click this spaced repetition button or this lapse, the lapse count will change the next time you see this flashcard. So say for example I say good on all of these, right? If I say good on all of these flashcards, the next time it'll give me an option to click one day. So this means that the flashcard will be shown the following day because it indicates that I understand the concept well enough to be able to answer the question efficiently or with equal accuracy the following day. So you only click this button when you feel like you're confident in your explanation and you know you can space it out a day later. I rarely ever click the easy button because I feel like this button is usually enough, and when I'm cramming for exams, when I have several exams back to back, it's more common for me to use these buttons rather than this one, than the easy button. So I usually stick to this unless I'm absolutely confident I can answer this question easily. Okay? Alright, Alright, so now that we've gone through some basic flashcard protocols when we're reviewing flashcards, let's go through some of the memorization strategies you can use to memorize drug names, specifically knowing between generic and brand names. Okay, so the key overarching idea overall when you're trying to memorize drug and generic and brand names of drugs is that you want to be able to recognize patterns. Okay, so you can't just memorize drugs one at a time. It's more ideal and it's a more efficient use of your time trying to memorize patterns, prefixes, suffixes, and even exceptions. And then the idea is to use Anki to help reinforce those patterns that you are able to later recognize when you go through the drug list. Okay, so I'll show you some examples. So some examples, as I have mentioned, of where I recognize patterns in drug names, whether it's brand or generic, are shown here on my left side here. So you can see here, say for example, if we look at prostaglandin F2 alpha analogs, we can see a bit of a naming pattern here where tan is the suffix, where I'll, like, for every brand name of a prostaglandin, we'll always find the suffix tan at the end. Like latanoprost is represented by the brand name is Zalatan. If the generic name is travoprost, the brand name is Travatan, and so on and so forth. And you can see that that same pattern is consistently showing up in all of the brand names for any prostaglandin F2 alpha analog. So you can keep in mind that when you are presented with the brand name Zalatan, you know that this is a prostaglandin F2 alpha analog because we just established that the tan suffix is present for every brand name of a prostaglandin F2 alpha analog. Okay? Another example here, when we're looking at carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, which are presented by the generic name in amide at the end, we can see that in the brand name there is the suffix opt. Okay, and if you notice, for both dorzolamide and brinzolamide, both generic names, you can see here that on the side or in the square brackets that the brand name is trusopt and azopt for each respectively. So you can see here that there's another pattern here where opt is the suffix for the brand names of carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Okay. Now, the last example that I want to show here is Robax, which is part of the brand name Specifically, it's the prefix of the brand name, which indicates that there is at least methylcarbamol plus a variable drug. So say for example, if we just have methylcarbamol alone, we'll get Robaxin or Robaxin 750. I'll just clarify that. Robaxin 750. And then if we have methylcarbamol or ibuprofen, we get Robax Platinum and Motrin Platinum. Okay? Methylcarbamol plus acetylsalicylic acid gets you Robaxacel, and so on and so forth. And you can see that the naming pattern is consistent. Okay? Also, I just wanted to point out here, so sometimes when you see combination products, you'll see the name show up, you'll see that the name of the added or of the adjunct medication, such as ibuprofen or acetaminophen, you can see here that the name Motrin, which shows that this medication includes ibuprofen, is part of the brand name for methylcarbamol and ibuprofen. Combination names. What I'm saying is that the that the brand name for adjunct or additional medications in a combination product can also be included in the brand name. Here we also see that there's a bit of platinum with acetaminophen. You can see here acet. This part of the generic name is used as a suffix in robaxacet. Okay, I'm pretty sure I made a note somewhere here because robaxacet there's a lot of combination products containing acetaminophen. I think hold on, let's search here. I think Percocet. Yeah, so say for example acetaminophen combination products. One example we know is acetaminophen oxycodone gets you Percocet. Same idea. Suffix set at the very least is showing up, right? There is methylcarbamol plus acetaminophen, or acetaminophen methylcarbamol gets you robaxacet. There's also acetaminophen and tramadol, which is an opioid that'll get you Traumacet. So you can see here that the name, the suffix acet, which is representative of acetaminophen, shows up in several combination products of acetaminophen and one additional active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, right? Acetaminophen oxycodone, Percocet; acetaminophen methylcarbamol, robaxacet; acetaminophen tramadol, Traumacet, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you just want to keep in mind of these naming patterns. Okay, just some other naming patterns that I wanted to show you just below as well, if you want to take a screenshot of this for yourself in the future. Alright, so the last memorization technique for the pharmacy drug list exam that I can give to you guys is knowing how to memorize drug doses, or what I use to memorize drug doses. So let's take a look here at ACE inhibitors. Okay, this is just a drug class. Pay no attention to what the drug class is, like what the drug class actually is. Let's focus on the doses here. So it's important to recognize that a given drug has a set of strengths, and a strength of a drug just refers to the amount of a drug per unit, or per capsule, per tablet, just per unit, amount of drug per unit, essentially. Now let me reiterate that each drug has a set of strengths, okay, or varying amounts of a strength per unit. So in the case of lisinopril has 3 strengths: 5, 10, and 20. So I noticed something from here, that the weakest strength is 5 milligrams, and then the next strength, the middle strength, is 10 milligrams, and then the strength after that is 20 milligrams. So I realized here that the relationship between each of the strengths is that the strength of one drug, or the initial strength of lisinopril is doubled to get the middle strength. Okay, and the same pattern goes for perindopril as well, I believe. The strength doubles from 2 to 4, and then from 4 to 8. So what did I realize here? I realized that essentially all of these drugs here they follow in a geometric sequence where AN is equivalent to the term of a drug, term or strength. N just refers to level of strength. Okay? Or, yeah, level of strength. And then A1 equals initial strength or term. Okay. Now the formula for a geometric sequence is a to the power, or AN equals A1 times the common ratio R equals common ratio to the power of N minus 1. Okay? That's essentially the relationship. And R is equal to A to the A n plus 1 over A n. That's essentially the relationship here. Therefore, so let's go back to the lisinopril example. Let's look at level of strength 3, 2, 1. Therefore, A3 is equal to 20 minus, or 5 times, 20 over 10 this is just indicative of A3 and A2. That's all it is. Just equal to 2 equals 5 times 2 to the power of 3 minus 1, which equals 5 times 4, which equals 20. There you go. Right. I'm not telling you to memorize all this math. That's not the main point of this exercise. The main point of this, the main point of what I'm trying to say here is that most drugs have, or the strengths of drugs follow a geometric sequence. The sets of strengths of drugs follow a geometric sequence where where the common ratio is usually 2. R equals 2, R equals 2. Meaning that as long as you recognize, or as long as you see that the ratio is 2, you can always deduce the next dose. And that's the thing about a lot of drug list exams where they test you on doses. They just need you to be able to recognize, like, that the strength of one drug can be increased by literally just doubling it. Like, not just with lisinopril, perindopril, ramipril too. 1.25 goes to 2.5, and then from 2.5 to 5, and then 5 to 10. That's all it is. So, just recognizing that most drugs follow a geometric sequence. All you really need to do is figure out the starting dose and the number of doses for a drug. That's the only tricky part here, because it's not always going to be 3 doses. Maybe it could be 5, 10 even. There might be 10 strengths available. So you just need to figure that out. But generally speaking, within a reasonable ballpark range, you'd roughly expect maybe 3 to 7 doses of a drug, usually. Or 3 to 7 strengths of a drug. Sorry. See, ARBs, angiotensin receptor blockers also follow the same pattern. Think about it. 4, 8, 16, 32. The ratio equals 2. 25, 50, 100. R equals 2. That's all it is. Drugs just follow a geometric sequence. That's all it is. Or strengths of drugs. The set of a strength of drugs usually comes in the form of geometric sequences. That's all it is. Some other memorization tips I have. So when you need to remember the exact starting dose, for example, I used for ASIs or for ACE inhibitors, I associated each ASI inhibitor, the first letter of each ASI inhibitor, with the starting dose. So lisinopril, the starting dose is 5. Perindopril is 2. Ramipril is 1.25, and then Trendopril, the starting dose is 0.5. I associated each letter with the starting dose, and that makes it a lot easier to figure out like what the subsequent doses are, because I'm starting from ascending from highest to lowest in descending order, so it made it easier to memorize the starting doses. Okay. Another example, beta blockers. So I memorized first like what beta blockers were included on the exam. There was atenolol, bisoprolol, carvedilol, metoprolol, labetalol, and propranolol. And because they were organized in this way, I made a mnemonic to memorize the beta blockers available. I chose ABCMLP. That's just a mnemonic that stuck within my head, or you might find something different that works for you. But essentially, I noticed that ABCM, atenolol, bisoprolol, carvedilol, and metoprolol, all contained the number 25 in the starting dose. So you can see here, the starting dose for atenolol is 25. The starting dose for bisoprolol is 1.25. The starting dose for carvedilol is 3.125. Right? Each of these contain the numbers 2, 5. Right? It's just a mnemonic. It doesn't necessarily have any logic to it. It's just that this was what helped stick in my head when I had the exam. Okay, so I used that, and then I also noticed that only labetalol and propranolol only had doses of containing the numbers 10 as the starting dose. So that. Alright, so I think that pretty much does it for this video. So what you're seeing on my screen now is just a summary of everything we've covered today. So feel free to take a screenshot of that. Maybe not this last part here. Maybe not this part here. This is just my grades for my last pharmacy drug list exam. That just gives some context as well as some credit as to how I performed on the last exam. And I would show my other grades here, but I don't happen to have them anymore. But it was a consistent performance, so I think you guys can trust me when it comes to releasing this kind of information. But in regards to performing well on this kind of exam, I think just something important to keep in mind is that when you first start memorizing a bunch of drug names, drug doses, the first time, it feels really slow and it feels like you'll take some time to catch on. In fact, for me, when I first started memorizing all this information, there was a lot to memorize, and there was 3 times as much information in the first year compared to the upper years, because in the first year, I think I spent maybe on average around 8 hours a day for 3 to 5 days prior to the pharmacy drug list exam, where I would just be spending so much time memorizing like flashcards, and I didn't have access to these techniques. So hopefully by me sharing you what I know, I hope that maybe I could hasten the learning process for you guys as well. That being said, please feel free to leave any comments in the please feel free to leave comments in the comment section below if you'd like me to answer any questions that you guys may have. That being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys can have a good one.